Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn the Gemara Masechta Shabbos on the Feimad Beis and the Vav Amud Aleph. Let's begin with looking at the general outline of the Sugya. In the previous Gemaras, up to Daf Amud Beis, where we're holding, we discussed many of the aspects related to carrying from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim or Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid that are discussed in the Mishnah. In this Gemara, we're going to present a Brisa that's going to have a machlekes regarding the din when a person carries from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim through a Carmelis. We're going to present that there's a machlekes. One opinion says that the person is chayiv, and one opinion says that he's potter. And on that teaching in the Brisa, we will continue in the Gemara and ask a question on the opinion that says that the person is chayiv, and then we're going to explain further the opinion that says that the person is potter. So let's see the Gemara now inside in the flowchart form. So we start with the Brisa that says if a person carried mechanus leplatia derech stav, he carried from a store to the public plaza, which is a Rishus HaYachid, to a Rishus HaRabim, derech stav, by way of a stav. The stav is the area where the people of the store would sit. They would have blocks over there, and they would sit on those blocks and sell the things that they had for sale. Because in that area there were blocks, it's not considered a Rishus HaRabim because people are unable to walk there. It's not either qualified as a Rishus HaYachid, it doesn't have the dimensions of a Rishus HaYachid, rather it's a Carmelis. So basically we have the Brisa saying that if a person carries from a Rishus HaYachid to a Rishus HaRabim through a Carmelis, there's a machlekes. The Rabbanan say that he's chayiv, and Ben Azai says that he's potter. So we have there the Brisa with the two opinions, one saying that the person is chayiv and one that he's potter. Now the Gemara is going to address each of the opinions. Regarding the Rabbanan, we're going to ask a question. We're going to present one answer that we're going to reject, a second answer which we'll reject, and then we'll present the final answer, and then we'll have a bit of a side discussion. And regarding Ben Azai, we're going to explain his opinion, how he doesn't hold it under all circumstances. So let's begin and see the Gemara's question. The Gemara articulates the question in such a way that we have a lead up into the question. The Gemara is going to say that we understand Ben Azai, and the purpose of saying that is to continue and say, however, the Rabbanan we don't. So the Gemara says Ben Azai makes sense since he holds mahalach ka'emedami. Ben Azai holds that when a person's walking, it's as if he's stopping, and therefore, if a person carried from a Rishus HaYachid to a Rishus HaRabim and he passed through a Carmelis, he's going to be potter. Because the way we see it is that he went from the Rishus HaYachid to the Carmelis, and he's considered as if he stopped there, and he's going to be potter, because the person is potter for carrying from a Rishus HaYachid to a Carmelis, and then when he continues, he's now carrying from a Carmelis to Rishus HaRabim, which is also potter, and therefore he's potter. So we can understand the opinion of Ben Azai, since he holds mahalach ka'emedami. However, according to the Rabbanan, it's not all written here in the question, but the Gemara says, however, according to the Rabbanan, even if we say that they hold mahalach lav ka'emedami, that when a person is walking, it's not as if he's standing, and therefore he didn't stop in the Carmelis, and he went from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim without stopping. Still in all, we have a question, and that is, where do we find that such a case is chayiv? Because in order for it to be chayiv, we need to find that such a thing is chayiv elsewhere. It had to have been in the Mishkan. We have to have a place that it's chayiv in order to say that it's chayiv. Since the malachas, like we explained, especially by Hitzah, not only the avos, but also the tuldas need to be found in the Mishkan. So the Gemara now begins and presents the first answer, Amar Rav Safra, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, that we find that a person is chayiv in a similar case. And the case is if a person carries more than 4 amas in Rishus HaRabim. So let's use the example of carrying 6 amas in Rishus HaRabim. If we look at the case of carrying 6 amas in Rishus HaRabim, and the case of carrying from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim through a Carmelis, we'll see that they are similar. When a person carries 6 amas in Rishus HaRabim, the first 4 amas are what make him chayiv. The extra 2 amas are not part of the chiyuv, so they're looked at as amas of ptur, since they don't contribute to the chiyuv. Nevertheless, even though the person added these 2 amas of ptur, when he puts it down at the end of the 6 amas, he's chayiv. So we could say the same thing in the case that we're discussing, that even though the individual passed through an area of ptur, the Carmelis, nevertheless, when he enters the Rishus HaRabim and puts down the item, he should be chayiv. The Gemara ever responds, mi dummy, is this really similar? They're not the same at all. Because if we look at it, when the person passed through those 2 amas, it's true he didn't need those 2 amas in order to be chayiv. The extra 2 amas by the carrying 6 amas in Rishus HaRabim, he didn't need those extra 2 amas. However, if he were to put them down, if he were to put down the item at any point within those 2 amas, he would be chayiv. So it's not a place of ptur, it's actually a place of chiyuv. Whereas in our case, the Carmelis is an area of ptur. If the person put down the item over there, he would have been potter and not chayiv. So therefore we can't compare the 2 cases, since in the ptur amas, in the carrying in Rishus HaRabim 6 amas, those amas, if he'd put it down, he'd be chayiv, whereas in our case, if he put it down, he would be potter. The Gemara continues and says, what we could compare it to is when a person carries an exact 4 amas in Rishus HaRabim. That would be similar to our case, and the reason is, if a person only carried part of those 4 amas, so let's use as an example 2 amas, he carried 2 amas. If he puts down the item in those 2 amas, he'll be potter. Nevertheless, when he continues and completes the malacha, and he puts it down after 4 amas, he's going to be chayiv. So let's say the same in our case. When he went from the Rosh Hashanah to the Rosh Hashanah and he passed through the Carmelis, if you put it in the Carmelis, he'll be patur. Nevertheless, when he continues to the Rosh Hashanah, he's doing an act of chayiv. So those two cases are more similar, and it's different than the previous example that we used, because in the previous example, the 2 amas that he added, if he were to put it down there, he'd be chayiv. And that's not similar to the Carmelis. If he put it down, he's patur. However, in our example, after 2 amas, if he puts it down, he's patur, similar to the Carmelis, where if he puts it down, he's patur. Nevertheless, at the end of 4 amas, he completes a malacha, and he's chayiv. We could see the same over here, that nevertheless, when he completes the malacha, when he enters the Rosh Hashanah and puts down the item, he should also be chayiv. The Gemara once again rejects this answer and says, Mi dami, are they the same? It's not really the same thing, because when the person puts it down after 2 amas, he's patur simply because he didn't complete the malacha of carrying 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah, but the area itself is an area of chiyuv, and therefore, a different individual, where if he started the malacha 2 amas further off than this individual that we're using as an example, so for him, his 4 amas are completed by this individual's 2 amas, so if he puts it down in this area, he would be chayiv. So it comes out that it's not an area of patur, it's simply that this individual's patur, since he didn't complete the malach of carrying 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah. But any other individual that would have carried 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah and put it down, at this point, he would be chayiv. So the area itself is an area of chiyuv. It's just that this individual is not chayiv since he didn't do a malacha when he put it down there. However, in our case, by the Carmelis, it's not just that this individual is patur if he puts it there, but any individual that puts it there will be patur, because the area is an area of ptur. And therefore, the cases are not similar. Now, the Gemara continues and presents the final answer, and we say it's similar to tzidei Rosh Hashanah. Tzidei Rosh Hashanah is that they would have the road over here, for example. People wouldn't build their houses right by the road. They didn't want people knocking into their houses with their wagons. They would build their homes a little distance off the road. The area between the road and the person's home is a Carmelis. It's Sidei Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbanon hold that Sidei Rosh Hashanah is considered a Carmelis. And therefore, we have a case where a person carries from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis, and he's chayiv. Because if a person were to carry an item from his home to the street, he's going to be chayiv. And this is a case where he's carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis. So here we have our answer where we find a source, the case where a person carries from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis and he's chayiv. Just we'll point out one thing here, and it'll be explained in Tosfos, which is a question that this doesn't really seem to answer our question. Because we asked, where do we find that such a thing happened? And we just bring another opinion that says that he's chayiv. We can ask on this opinion as well, where do we find that such a thing is chayiv in the Mishkan? So Tosfos addresses that. But at any rate, the Gemara here says that this is our source. We find that if a person carries from Rosh Hashanah from his home to the road, which is a Rosh Hashanah, through the Tzidei Rosh Hashanah, which is a Carmelis, he's going to be chayiv. And with that, we answered our question on the Rabbanon, where is their source that this case is chayiv? The Gemara now continues to a side discussion. The Gemara asks a question, and first it brings some background information to lead into the question. The Gemara says that this sits well with the Rabbanon. The Rabbanon hold that the Tzidei Rosh Hashanah are considered a Rosh Hashanah, are considered a Carmelis. So when a person carries from his home to the street through the Tzidei Rosh Hashanah, it's a case of carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis. However, how about according to Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that Tzidei Rosh Hashanah ki Rosh Hashanah, that the sides of the Rosh Hashanah are part of the Rosh Hashanah, since the public sometimes spill over into that area, it's considered a Rosh Hashanah. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, where do we find that a person is chayiv for carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis? Now this is a side question because we already resolved our question. We have a source for the Rabbanon. However, the Gemara is inquiring whether we could find a case that fits with all opinions, even with Rabbi Eliezer. And the Gemara answers, and again by bringing some background information first, and says, we only find that Rabbi Eliezer says that the sides of Rosh Hashanah are considered part of the Rosh Hashanah if that side area is open to the Rosh Hashanah, and therefore the public spill over into it, so it becomes considered part of the Rosh Hashanah. However, Rabbi Eliezer did not say it in a case where there are barriers set up between the Rosh Hashanah and this side area. And people would set up barriers over there in order that wagons shouldn't come and knock into the walls and cause damage to their homes. So we only find that Rabbi Eliezer says that this area is considered part of the Rosh Hashanah if there are no barriers. However, if there are barriers, he never said it's considered part of the Rosh Hashanah. So from there we can see that in such a case he will not hold it's part of the Rosh Hashanah. And it's not either Rosh Hashanah since it doesn't have the dimensions of the Rosh Hashanah. We don't have walls that are 10 tefachim high. So in that case, it will be a Carmelis. And nevertheless, if a person carried from his home through this area, which is a Carmelis, to the Rosh Hashanah, he'll be chayiv. So we have such a case, like we conclude over here, we have such a case for Rabbi Eliezer as well. So it's the same as carrying through such a tzidei Rosh Hashanah, where such a tzidei Rosh Hashanah is a Carmelis. So now we're done with our discussion on the Rabbanon, which was, we asked that what is the source for the Rabbanon to say that when a person carries from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis that he's chayiv. First we try to compare it to when a person carries more than 4 Amos in Rosh Hashanah. Then we try to compare it to a case where a person carries exactly 4 Amos in Rosh Hashanah. And we presented our final answer that it's like when a person carries from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through the tzidei Rosh Hashanah. And we explained how it could also fit with Rabbi Eliezer, who in a case will hold that the tzidei Rosh Hashanah is a Carmelis. Now the Gemara moves on to speak about another detail of the Brisa, which is the opinion of Ben Azai. So we're going to go back to the Brisa that we mentioned initially. So as you can see, we had the first discussion that extended out of the Brisa, which addressed the opinion of the Rabbanon, and now we're going to speak about the opinion of Ben Azai. So you can see how it's organized, that this Gemara is discussing first the opinion of the Rabbanon, and then the opinion of Ben Azai. And Rabbi Yechanan says that Ben Azai agrees that if one passed it or threw it through the Carmelis, he's chayiv. And the Gemara only mentions at this point throwing. We included passing because, as we'll see, it's mentioned in a moment. So here we have the teaching of Rabbi Yechanan, who says that although Ben Azai is of the opinion that if somebody carries from Rosh Hashanah to a Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis, he's potter, we have the reason for Ben Azai, which is because he holds mahalach ka'imedami. When one walks, it's as if he's standing. Therefore, it comes out that when he passed through the Carmelis, it's as if he came to rest in the Carmelis. And what that accomplishes is that it separates it into 2 acts: an act of carrying from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis, and an act of carrying from a Carmelis to Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, he's potter. Therefore, it'll come out that in a case where a person did not actually stop in the Rosh Hashanah, in the Carmelis, rather he threw the item over the Carmelis, or he passed it over the Carmelis, then he will be chayiv. And the Gemara brings a supporting brisa, which is much more extensive than just mentioning that there's a brisa. The brisa over there says that the Rabbanon hold that if a person went from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis, or if he carried from the Rosh Hashanah to the Rosh Hashanah through the Carmelis, or if he threw it in either direction, or if he passed the item in either direction, the Rabbanon say in all cases he'll be chayiv. The brisa continues and says that Ben Azai argues and says if the person carried in either direction, he'll be potter. However, if he passed the item or threw the item in either direction, then he'll be chayiv. So to summarize the Gemara, we presented that when a person carries, it's really in either direction, from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis, or from the Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through a Carmelis, there's a machlekes. The Rabbanon say that he's chayiv, and Ben Azai says that he's potter. And the Gemara questioned and asked on the opinion of the Rabbanon, where do we find the source for such a case? We presented 2 answers which we rejected, and then we presented the final answer. And the Gemara also explained that Ben Azai only holds that the person's potter if he walks in through the Carmelis. However, if he threw the item over the Carmelis or passed it over the Carmelis, then he will be chayiv.